cue an existential crisis. I kind of read this as a diary entry, imagining his face here. There's an inkling the protagonist has that she needs to be somewhere else, but she doesn't know why yet. He loves her not, and that hurts, but now she has the clarity. Millennial stress. All of that mental space is now opened up, and the protagonist can focus on herself. I just find this so satisfying. In my notes, I literally have like the less than 3 symbol with a line through it. Let's carry on. It's me. Hi. Hi everyone, welcome to this video. On my channel, I analyze song lyrics very in depth through the lens of a literary analysis. Today, we are continuing our journey through Taylor Swift's newest album, Midnights. I've already analyzed the lyrics to the song Antihero and Sweet Nothing. I will link the Midnights playlist below, and I will also link all of my Taylor Swift analyses so far below. I analyzed quite a lot of Taylor Swift on this channel. I think we're up to about 30 plus analyses so far. So I will make sure to link my Taylor Swift analysis playlist below for you. We're almost done with all the folklore songs. We're making good headway on Evermore. I've also touched upon her other albums as well. Now I'm excited that Midnights is going to be in the mix too. After I'm done with all the songs, I will be doing album summaries and other fun things as well. So make sure to stay tuned. Here's a list of literary terms I may refer to throughout this video. And as always, everything I state is just my own personal opinion. Music is a very subjective thing, and I always love hearing what you think down below in the comments. Today we're analyzing the song You're on Your Own, Kid. Let's dive in with verse 1. For me, this song is Taylor, or the protagonist, looking back on their adolescence, thinking about specific moments or specific time frames within their life that led them to becoming the musical artist they are today. Summer went away, still the yearning stays. To yearn for something means to long for it really intensely. The first 2 lyrics here make me think of a summer romance. I think about summertime in a lot of different ways. Here specifically, I think about a summer love. Perhaps the protagonist had a summer fling with someone. That's why they still yearn for them. They still long for them. Or maybe they weren't even like really together romantically, but maybe they were getting close to one another platonically. Maybe their families were hanging out, or they were like at summer camp together. You know how sometimes your life circumstances can allow you to be close to someone logistically? Maybe that happened, and while the protagonist was close to this person due to random circumstances, they developed feelings for them and they were longing for them. Even though that summertime is over, even though that summer camp or that summer job where they met, I'm just giving you some examples, is over, they still have feelings for them. They're still yearning for this person. And to yearn for someone, it feels very romantic, and it's very like passionate, and it's just all like this. Right? This is a very intense word. The diction here makes the feelings here feel very big and elaborate, which is what I would associate with a love that you experience during your adolescence. So this love maybe started in the summer, but it is proceeding into the fall. I play it cool with the best of them. What the best of them is an idiom. An idiom refers to a phrase whose meaning you can't really decipher from the words. So when we say with the best of them, it means as well as anyone could given the circumstances. So here what's being said is that even though the protagonist was yearning and having very intense, hardcore feelings for this person, they were playing it cool as best that they were able to, given the situation. And the situation here is young love, which is very intense and just very like this, just that's young love. If it started exactly during the summertime, it's going to be mythologized in a way. It's going to be put on a pedestal in a way, because there's often a carefree, romanticized sort of vibe that a lot of people, especially in their adolescence, associate with the summer. I would argue that may add another layer of intensity to the yearning and feelings of love the protagonist is experiencing. I think that if a crush or an infatuation starts during the summer, it hits different. So the protagonist is feeling these very intense feelings, and she's trying to play it cool. It's fine. I wait patiently. He's gonna notice me. It's okay. We're the best of friends. So this is going to be an unrequited love scenario. This person, we're gonna find out, is not gonna like them back, which happens sometimes. You can't make anyone like you. That's okay, but it still hurts. Right? It still hurts. And what hurts more is that the protagonist is best friends with this person. I always think it's easier to have strong feelings for someone you don't have to hang out with all the time, because if they don't like you back, you can just like not see them super often or at all. But if you're best friends with them, like you're going to be in constant emotional pain the whole time. She is not going to say anything about her feelings. She's just going to play it cool and wait for him to just magically realize that he's in love with her. I feel like this is something that we often do in our adolescence. We're just gonna like wait for someone to like notice us, and it's just like, I'm just gonna wait. It makes me sad that she's just like sitting there and waiting, right? I know that her options are pretty limited. She can of course bring it up with her love interest and let them know that she has feelings for them. But if you do that, then the dynamic is gonna shift and it'll get kind of weird. And then maybe you won't even hang out as much anymore, so you won't even see them. And then that'll make you sad because you like them. But it does bum me out. I really feel for the protagonist. They have this belief that the love interest here is gonna notice them in a romantic way. They're just waiting for that second, that like hair flip or like sun flare, and then the love interest is going to be like, OMG, I have romantic feelings for you. When she says anyway, it kind of breaks my heart because I'm viewing this as someone who's like 15 or 16, right? They're in high school, they're a kid. I kind of read this as a diary entry. This really is reminiscent for me of Taylor's really early work. You guys know I've been listening to Taylor for forever. I found her on MySpace, okay? Not to age myself too much, but like I found her on MySpace. So this was like 2007 maybe. So I've been listening to her for like a really long time, and I remember her early albums, like when they came out, I always loved it because I would just sit there and I would read through the album insert, and I was like, wow, this is like someone's diary. The feelings and the thought and the experiences were just so accessible and stated in such like a clear and relatable way. I'm getting that feeling here again. It's very like pure and cute and sweet, and it reminds me of like that youthful feeling, writing down your feelings in your diary. So I think about that as I'm reading these lyrics. It really feels like the speaker is a younger person, and it just makes me so nostalgic. I also feel very protective of this younger protagonist. I just like want to be a big sister to them and give them some unsolicited advice and like buy them ice cream and take them shopping. I feel like I need to become an aunt or something. I have that energy in me. I can feel it. Okay, it's also a pretty chill word, it's pretty casual. So the diction here, the connotation of anyways, is kind of diminishing the intensity of the emotions the protagonist may be experiencing, right? They're like, anyways, like it's fine. They're trying to dismiss their emotions a little bit, or not dismiss. Yeah, I take that back. Maybe distance themselves a little bit from their emotions, because it can be overwhelming when you have a crush on someone when you're that young. And there's a little bit of a jump in time. This is like another instance being described here. In my opinion, it says, I hear it in your voice, you're smoking with your boys. I touch my phone as if it's your face. It sounds like the protagonist was on the phone with their best friend, their love interest. While they were on the phone, she realized that he was smoking with his boys, as one does, I guess. When it says, I touch my phone as if it's your face, here's what I imagine is happening. And again, I want to take this protagonist and like buy them ice cream. Like I really do. This is so sweet. It's sweet now because I'm an adult, but like when you're feeling these things, it is not sweet, it is not fun, it is like really intense and horrible, and like all you want to do is just watch Gilmore Girls, the episodes with Jess, hashtag Team Jess. I think the protagonist called their best friend. She realized that he was hanging out with his boys, so they hung up. When you want to talk to your crush and you call them and you realize they can't talk, you feel kind of sad. I imagine her kind of being in her feels, and she's like, I'm recording on my phone, so I don't know what to use as a phone. Hold on, let me look for a prop. We're gonna use this eyeshadow palette that was just here. It's from ColourPop. I haven't used this. Look at the colors, hold on. I'm gonna be a beauty guru for like a nanosecond. Look at that. I bought these to try to do like different colored eyeliner, but I haven't done that yet. This is gonna be the phone. She was like calling him and she's like, oh my God, hi. Except she wasn't like that because she has a crush on him. So she's like, hi. And he was like, I'm smoking with my boys. And then she was like, okay, bye. And then she's gonna look very wistfully at the phone. And I'm not an actress. I don't know how to like emote on purpose. She looks wistfully sad. She's like, at her phone, and she's like, ugh. And then I imagine her like just imagining his face here. And like, I'm imagining this from Taylor's perspective. She is older than me, but like, let me do mental math. Hold on. I don't think we had iPhones then. I don't think we did. Actually, we did have iPhones then. But like we wouldn't really FaceTime. I feel like if you listen to this now, like if you're like a younger person, you would imagine them being on FaceTime. It would make more sense. Like where his face once was, she would like touch it. I don't think they were FaceTiming. I don't think that within this time period, people would FaceTime super often because MySpace existed. And I don't remember FaceTiming super often when MySpace existed. Anyways, you're getting a history lesson in addition to me analyzing the song, so BOGO. My point is, his picture wasn't here. There's more imagining being done on part of the protagonist, which reflects her emotional state even more strongly. That's my point. I had a point to this. I don't know what's happening. She could have had a flip phone, for God's sake. This is what we had to do back in the day. Can you believe this? Oh my God, I'm on the phone. Oh my God, who's in your top 8 on MySpace? Oh my God, la 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 la. And then you'd be like, yeah. Flip phones. I think once she like closed the flip phone, she would be like that. Just kind of like, that's what I imagine her doing. And I think that's very sweet and very sad. But I think she really liked this person. You know, I understand when you're that age, it's a lot. It really is. I actually imagine her, if she had a flip phone, she would close it very softly like this. The way you close your flip phone was reflective of your emotional state. So if you were angry, you would be like, ah, and then you would go listen to Rise Against. That's what I would do. But I feel like she's very wistfully and romantically sad. So she would just be like, right? But I can see someone doing that, being really bummed out they can't talk to the person they have a crush on, and imagining what it would be like for them to have a romantic moment together. And the romantic moment here was the protagonist touching her love interest's face, some physical intimacy. I personally think that is an actual memory the protagonist has, because I can see that happening very easily. Then it says, I didn't choose this town, I dream of getting out. There's just one who could make me stay. I wonder who that is. I do think the song is occurring during the same time in the protagonist's life that Midnight Rain is talking about. I think it's like similar time periods in Taylor's life if we are to interpret them as completely autobiographical. We don't know if they are. They could be inspired by true events, but you know, have some things be more fictional. But those two songs are about kind of similar things. I don't necessarily think the love interest is the same in both. They're described differently in my opinion. I would actually love to know what you think about that. Let me know down below if you have an opinion about that. I think it's very common when you're that age to really want to get out of your hometown. Like I felt that really strongly. And I mean, I did that, and like there's no shade to my hometown. There was nothing wrong with it, but I was just like, I need to get out. Like lots of teen angst. However, even if we're not talking about teen angst, I think that sometimes you can intuitively know that a place is not meant for you. You can kind of sense that maybe the people there or the mindset of the community that you're in, the general vibe just isn't meant for you. You dream of going somewhere where you think you will be received in a better way, or where you think you will have more freedom and more comfort. Maybe the protagonist knows that she wants to work in the music industry, and she knows that the town she's living in now isn't going to help her do that. Maybe it's like very logistical in that way. I maybe think that the protagonist doesn't know that 100% yet, because we have lyrics later on in the song that let us know the protagonist starts writing lyrics. So I think like there's an inkling the protagonist has that she needs to be somewhere else, but she doesn't know why yet. She's gonna have that realization later in the song. The protagonist is stating this in a way that to me seems very calm and very like straightforward. She really understands that about herself intuitively, that she needs to be in a different place and to live in a different place. But her feelings for this person are so strong that she is willing to say that, you know what, there's one thing that could make me stay. She can see herself staying there for that person. She is in deep with her feelings, right? She has really, really strong feelings for this person. That's what that is illustrating here. Then it says, all my days. All of her days were spent yearning for this person, probably imagining scenarios with this person, imagining a future in that town with this person. This is giving some mild Gold Rush vibes. I did analyze that song. I'll link it down below for you. In Gold Rush, I touched upon how it's not the best idea to put your crushes on a pedestal, because you're going to imagine very perfect scenarios with them, and like, how do you know those scenarios are actually going to be perfect? You don't. We're not psychic. This is not an episode of That's So Raven. Even though her visions were always kind of incorrect in a way, but like that's besides the point. It's dangerous to daydream about these sorts of things, but also how can you not daydream about your crush? It's something we all do naturally, but the more you do it, the more you daydream about someone that you're not with yet and someone who it's likely you're not going to be with, the more hurt you might end up being versed to. From sprinkler splashes to fireplace ashes. How is she gonna sing all of this? I get tongue-tied with this. I got tongue-tied with saying Machiavellian in my antihero analysis. And Sweet Nothing, it was like the smooth talking hucksters out glad handing each other. Did you see how much slower I had to say that? Girl, I am impressed, Taylor. You're gonna be singing this like tongue twisters, OMG. When I see sprinkler splashes, I think about the summertime. That's when the yearning started. I envision those sprinklers that people put in their yards in the summer where the sprinklers are tall and you kind of run through it. It's kind of like a splash pad a little bit. That's what I am envisioning, but it could also just be a regular sprinkler for your lawn. When it says fireplace ashes, I think about the winter because it's cold and you would need a fireplace during the colder months. When I think about the sprinkler, I think about water. This brings forth water imagery, and then we have fire imagery. This could be an over-analysis, but this is an analysis channel. Water imagery is often positive. Water is cleansing. It can cleanse you metaphorically. It can signify a renewal or a rebirth. If you go swimming in a body of water and you come out, maybe you're a brand new person. And water is also just life. Water brings with it lively energy. It's another positive aspect. Fire imagery is pretty complex. We've talked about it on this channel. I remember in Ivy by Taylor Swift, we talked about fire imagery quite a bit, so I will link that down below. Fire imagery can be positive or negative. Fire can be life-sustaining. Fire can keep you warm. That is very necessary for you to be healthy and safe, and a fireplace is doing just that, right? It's not an uncontained fire that can get out of hand very quickly. It is a controlled fire. It's providing you with warmth in the coldness of the winter. So I think that's positive. Fire can also represent passion, but I don't really see that here. Because it says fireplace ashes, the word ashes is giving me very strong My Tears Ricochet flashbacks. I will link my analysis of that down below as well. That was a very interesting song to analyze, and I still don't know which of my 4 interpretations I'm more partial towards. It still changes for me. Ash is defined as the powdery residue left after the burning of a substance. So ash is leftover, and it's like a powder. It's a dark powder. It's not a positive image, in my opinion. I just mentioned how a fireplace I would interpret as positive, but the main image here is not the fireplace. It's the ashes of the fireplace. It's what's left over. To me, that's a somber sort of image, and the image in the previous line with the sprinkler splashes, to me, is a very lively image. So we're going from liveliness to somber. We're going from summertime to winter, and winter symbolically is not the most positive season. You can interpret winter in a positive way. Everything is context dependent, but within this song, I think the winter vibes from the second lyric are meant to denote like a hibernation of sorts, an ending of sorts. Winter is the last season before the new year, at least in the northern hemisphere. We can kind of view that as a foreshadow, moving from lighter times to maybe darker or heavier times, even emotionally. Those 2 lines also signify a passage of time. A whole year has gone by. She has been longing for this person, yearning for this person that whole time. I waited ages to see you there. The word ages signifies a very long period of time. For example, like within history, the Middle Ages were literally like 1,000 years. The word ages can signify a very, very long period of time. And the protagonist is waiting. I hate this because it's so like passive, and power dynamic wise, there is no power in what the protagonist is doing. She's just like yearning and waiting. But also, if that's like your true emotion, what else are you supposed to do? You know what I mean? Again, you can always tell the other person how you feel, but everything is very context dependent. I feel for the protagonist very strongly. She really liked this person, and she was waiting for him to realize that he was in love with her this whole time. He just doesn't know it yet, right? I searched the party of better bodies just to learn that you never cared. I think this is referring to the moment the protagonist realized that her love was never going to be reciprocated. I enjoy how it says of better bodies because you can think about this literally, like in a party, there's bodies dancing, like hanging out, and she can be like searching through the party, walking through the groups of people dancing and talking. However, I also think about this in regards to the words nobody and somebody in anybody. The people that the protagonist was like walking through, the crowd she was walking through, consisted of people who were all better than the love interest. Any one of these people, anybody there could have been somebody else for the protagonist, somebody else other than this love interest. What's being said here is that the love interest never cared about the protagonist. And to me, that's very gut-wrenching, because if you're best friends, there should be at least a platonic level of caring. But this sounds like he didn't care at all, like at all. Something happened at this party that made the protagonist realize that this love was not going to be reciprocated. Maybe she saw the love interest with another girl, or maybe she had a conversation with him. But whatever happened did not happen in a pleasant way. If they had a conversation, maybe the message that the love interest gave the protagonist was not delivered with care and gentleness, or maybe she just walked in on something. This whole time, she could have literally had anyone else, but she had tunnel vision this whole time, this whole year, for that one person. And it's not her fault. When you have that realization, you're like, this whole time, this other person didn't care, and you could have stopped liking them and maybe liked someone else who actually cared about you. That's what I'm thinking about when I hear these lyrics. Chorus. I interrupt this video with a very special message from myself. This is sponsored by me. I want to let you guys know that I'm offering services on the website Fiverr. I'm offering a few different things. I can help you refine your own analysis skills to develop your own unique perspective about poetry, about song lyrics, about any written work. I've also been getting a lot of messages from you guys letting me know that you use my videos to help you learn English. So if you need an English conversation partner, I'm your girl. We can converse through the internet. I can help you with pronunciation, sentence structure, and random things about American culture that are not super intuitive. If you're a songwriter or a poet and want me to read your original piece of work and provide you with a very detail-oriented feedback, I can do that as well. All that information is going to be linked down below. If you have any questions about any of the services I'm offering, please message me directly through the website Fiverr. Back to the video that you actually clicked here for. You're on your own, kid. You always have been. That's a moment of understanding that the protagonist is having. And I think that maybe this is one of the first instances she realized this in her life. And to me, it's not just that her love was not being reciprocated. It was also the fact that this person she thought at the very least like cared for her in a platonic way, perhaps didn't at all. Everything was severely one-sided. That is the way that I'm interpreting this. That's the vibe I get from the way that everything is stated. She's realizing that she's on her own. She was basing all of this yearning, all of these possibilities of her not leaving this town. She was basing all of that on nothing. She realized she was alone. You're on your own, kid could be something that the protagonist was thinking at that time or realizing at that time, or it could be something that the present day protagonist is thinking while she's reminiscing on that memory. I think sometimes you notice patterns in your life when you're looking back. Hindsight is 20/20. Or sometimes you may realize it within the middle of those patterns occurring as well. When it says you always have, and I find that very heartbreaking because she was betting a lot on this person, and you do this subconsciously when you like someone. It's very natural for you to do this. But I feel like this was a very big loss for her, and it's heartbreaking because it's like not a loss at all to this other person because they were like existing in a completely different world. They didn't care about the protagonist. But when you have that realization that not only are you alone in this moment, but that in fact you've been alone this whole time, you always have been, that's gut-wrenching. She's realizing that this whole year, from sprinkler splashes to fireplace ashes, this whole time when she was daydreaming and stuff and waiting for this person, she was wasting her time. Perhaps she feels a little foolish. And again, not her fault at all, but OMG, it's so sad. And I think now she's gonna be like, well, I'm definitely not staying in this town. Nothing's keeping me here. We're getting some anger. And anger is not a positive emotion, but sometimes it's gonna kind of point you in the direction that you should go in. Verse 3. I see the great escape, so long, Daisy May. I really think the realization that the protagonist had that this love was not going to be reciprocated was a catalyst for her to try to make plans to move her life in a different direction. She's going back to her original plans of trying to get out of her hometown. When it says great escape, I think it's referring to escaping from her hometown. She's starting to think about her own life now, separate from anyone else. So long, Daisy May. I did look up Daisy May to see if this is a reference to like, I don't know, like a TV show or something, or like a character or a real person. And I couldn't find anything except for an Animal Crossing reference. The animal who sells the turnips Her name is Daisy May. So to me, Daisy May is just a name that is being used to represent her hometown. But I get like a small town vibe from that name. I do think it's a name that you may come across more easily in a town in the southern United States. So when it says "So long, Daisy May," I think that's the protagonist kind of personifying her small town. The name Daisy May is meant to represent how she feels about the town. To me, it's not inherently negative, but it's something that the protagonist does not identify with. When you think about Midnight Rain, she said that she wants the pain, right? And we'll talk about that when I analyze that song. But I feel like the name Daisy May, and please, if your name is Daisy May, I'm not like analyzing your name. I'm analyzing this name in the context of this song as stated by this protagonist. So I'm not analyzing your name, okay? Please do not take anything I say personally. I genuinely like the name Daisy May. I think it's really cute. But if we are to think about it in the context of the song, it's not being representative of something or someone who wants to like go out and go for the pain and make their name and be Midnight Rain. It's a softer sort of vibe than that, which is not bad, but it's not what the protagonist is aligning herself with. So long is another way to say goodbye. So here the protagonist is saying goodbye, Daisy May. And since, according to my interpretation, Daisy May is meant to represent the protagonist's town, her hometown, it's like the protagonist is saying goodbye to her hometown. This to me indicates that the protagonist has made a very firm decision about wanting to get out of her hometown and to pursue her dreams. I pick the petals, he loves me not. This refers to something that people do. When you're younger, you would like pick a flower and you would pick off the petals. And with each petal, you would alternate saying the following: he loves me not, he loves me. He loves me not. And then the last one that you got would be like the answer. So we were all being fake psychics. Lots of fun times. So that's what that's referring to. Again, it's more of a childish sort of thing. It's more of an innocent sort of thing, which I think is cute. However, that little bit of innocence, picking the petals to see if your crush likes you back, is being juxtaposed here. At least in my opinion, it's a little bit of a juxtaposition with something that's not like innocent and cute. It's something that is pretty heavy and very straightforward, right? There's no romance in the following statement that says, he loves me not. This to me showcases a lot of things. I think this is a very important lyric. I think this is the protagonist coming out of that romantic mindset and growing up a little bit. She is realizing that what she needs to do in this moment is to focus on herself. She was in that world of longing and pining for someone, but that didn't work out for her. It actually ended up hurting her. So she's realizing that, you know what, I can't depend on anyone right now. I'm on my own. I need to figure this out for myself. He loves her not. And that hurts, but now she has the clarity, right? She is using the time that she would have used trying to think of ways to get him to notice her, time she used daydreaming about their future. She's using that time to think about how she is going to move out of her hometown. How is she going to convince her parents? I think that's what Taylor actually did. She convinced her parents to move, if I'm not mistaken. But just any protagonist, they're going to use that extra time now. They're going to calculate how much money they need to move out. Okay, I'm gonna go get a job after school or on the weekends. All of that mental space is now opened up and the protagonist can focus on herself. Also that emotional space. The protagonist is hurting right now, but clarity is so helpful. It's so helpful because you're not in a land of what ifs and uncertainty. Being in a state of uncertainty takes a lot of energy. There could be an underlying amount of anxiety that comes with that you don't even realize. Once all of that becomes clear to you, it's like you've sobered up emotionally. You're still hurting, but you're emotionally sober in regards to your focus. You don't have those emotions and those thoughts about, oh my gosh, am I gonna run into him today? I know he likes to go to the Taco Bell after school, so I'm gonna go the long way and maybe run into him and like I'm gonna wear this cute shirt. That's a lot of energy and a lot of wasted time taking longer routes to run into your crush. And again, it's not the protagonist's fault. I'm not blaming her. This is something that is very natural and that we all do. But I think as we get older, we become a lot more intentional about how we choose to spend our time and what we allow in regards to our time and energy. And I think that this lyric is showing a maturing of the protagonist. To me, it's a juxtaposition of something you do when you're younger and a little bit more naive. It's like a cute thing. He loves me not, picking off the petals. feels, but it's a transition, it's a juxtaposition to something that is more mature. She is now existing in a more mature headspace and in a more mature landscape. This, for her, is a positive thing because this is a catalyst for her to move her life in a direction. When you want to change your life, when you want to move out of your hometown, or when you want to like switch careers or get better grades, whatever, you need to make small incremental changes and you need to be very intentional about those changes. The protagonist now has that time and energy to devote to her own life. She got a dose of realism and she is becoming serious now. I find that to be a very important lyric. I really enjoy that. I love the next two lines. I actually tweeted about this. It says, "Something different bloomed, writing in my room." You know, we are all assuming this is about Taylor, I'm sure. She was writing what may become a song. While she was writing, she realized that it maybe felt good, and not just in a cathartic way, but in a way that maybe felt very creatively satisfying. And she's like, hey, I really like writing. It's not only a release for me, but I also feel like I can create something out of this. I feel like I can put all of my emotions into thoughts and into words and create something cohesive out of it. This feels like something important. I need to explore this. The fact that she is writing in her room is so important, and she got there due to this heartbreak. One door closes, 10 more open sometimes. And I love that this is something that's dealing with her and building herself up as a person and exploring herself and realizing what she likes to do, getting closer to her purpose, as we know that she becomes a very successful singer, songwriter, musical artist, and businesswoman. I just find this so satisfying. The protagonist writing in her room is her own thing. I always think it's really necessary and important and healthy to have your own thing, whether it's like your career or maybe it's just a hobby. But you need to have things that nourish you, that make you feel validated as a person, that make you feel like you, that don't have anything to do with anyone else in your life, platonic or romantic relationships. You need to have things that you always will have regardless of how other people in your life feel about you. That's what the protagonist is cultivating here, and that's what gets me excited. Okay, you guys, PSA, this is actually the next day. I'm wearing the same outfit for continuity, but there's no way my makeup looks the same. I'm letting you know. If you think something looks different, it's because it does. There's only some mild continuity going on over here. Okay, let's continue. As I was saying, I think it's really important for you to have your own thing, and not just to fill your time with, but in a more existential way. Because sometimes some things happen in your life that make you feel less than, that make you value yourself less. Whether it's ending a relationship or, God forbid, losing your job, getting laid off, etc. Those sorts of things sometimes make you not value yourself as a person because there's external things, external people, an external company, whatever, telling you that you have no value. In a way, that may not be what they're saying, but that may be what you're feeling, even subconsciously. But if you have your own thing that doesn't depend on someone else like approving of you or liking you or like hiring you, that is something that can help ground you. So although I do feel for the protagonist that she got her heart broken, I do think that she's on the right path now, cultivating something for herself and getting to know herself better. The word bloom, I love that diction so much because when we think about the word bloom, we think about flowers blooming, which they do during spring. Spring is a time of renewal and rebirth, lots of liveliness. That's when animals are born, most of them. A flower blooming to me is a very beautiful process. It's, again, signifies a renewal and a rebirth of sorts. So from sprinkler splashes to fireplace ashes, but now we have something blooming. Beautiful progression. I love it. I stan. Beautiful. I love that it says writing in my room because she's just a teenager in her room in her parents' house writing about her feelings. Nothing you do is insignificant. Like, in the grand scheme of things, yeah, you're not that important. Like, don't get an ego, but like, I think it's important to value the things that you care about and to respect the things you care about. I play my songs in the parking lot, I'll run away. When it says she plays her song in the parking lot, I think maybe she recorded some things. She's listening to her songs, maybe listening to what she should change, how she sounds, things like that. This shows me that there's been a progression in her work, in her art. We go from writing to listening to the music that's based on her writing. I love seeing that progression. I love seeing that movement within her life. To live is to move. Metaphorically, to stand still is to stagnate. And when you're fixated on another person and they're taking up all your time and energy and you don't have time and energy for yourself anymore, I would argue that's a type of stagnation. I'll run away. She wants to run away from her town. I'm assuming. Maybe also from the feelings she's feeling. I'm sure she's still heartbroken, but also like starting this new endeavor, writing and doing all these things. There's like maybe a feeling of friction because you're starting to do something that is different than what you've previously done. Things are gonna change. You're gonna change. Your relationships, like your friendships, might change because you're doing something. Something bigger is being created here. That may feel kind of weird at first. Verse 4. Verse 4 is parallel to verse 2. We do have the repeated lyrics from sprinkler splashes to fireplace ashes. And again, I do view that as passage of time and also signifying the length of time that the protagonist was infatuated with or yearning for their love interest. And I do kind of view that as ominous as well due to the word ashes. I think this is giving us some more details about how the protagonist found out that this other person never cared for her. So I think this is referring to the same night. It's just a continuation of it. From verse 2, the context clues we have is that the protagonist realized her love interest didn't care about her at a party. She was walking through a crowd and I'm assuming she saw something. Here in verse 4 it says, I called a taxi to take me there. As a teenager, you don't always have access to a car if you even can drive yet. She made a lot of effort. She called a taxi. There were no apps during this time. Uber did not exist. So she looked up a taxi company, called them, paid for it. Like, I don't know what job she had as a teenager. Did she have a job? Whatever. She used her allowance to call a taxi to take her to a party. I'm assuming she was going there to maybe run into her love interest. That's what I'm assuming, but maybe she just wanted to go hang out with her friend. I searched the party of better bodies, so of better options of people that she could have spent her time maybe getting to know that would have actually cared for her. Those are repeated lyrics. It's kind of like a flashback and she's remembering what she did, and each time she's remembering it, we're getting more details and more visuals. It's kind of like a movie. If you watch my videos, you've heard me say that, oh, this is like a movie, this is like a movie. Her songs are like movies. That's why I love them so much. And then this lyric, in my notes, I literally have like the less than 3 symbol with a line through it. This lyric, the first time I heard it, I was floored. I was like, oh my goodness. And when I listen to it, I do get kind of emo with this lyric. Just to learn that my dreams aren't rare. What does that mean? It means she saw him with another person. She's not the only one that had a dream of being with this person. I think she saw him with another person, or maybe she heard something that this love interest is maybe, I don't know, like hooking up with a lot of people. That would suggest that her dreams really aren't rare, that there is a large number of people who also share an infatuation with this person. Again, I'm getting Gold Rush vibes. That could be a thing as well. Hearing a rumor, or maybe hearing him talk about the different girls he's hooking up with, if that's what's happening. Or maybe she saw him with someone. Her dreams aren't rare. She really thought this was something special and she was just waiting for him to like realize that he's in love with her. They exist in the same world, but they're existing in different realities. And this is no one's fault, right? I don't want to vilify the guy here because like he just doesn't feel like that about the protagonist. It's not his fault. If someone you like doesn't like you back, it's very hurtful, but it is what it is, right? And again, especially when you're younger, I think everything is just more dramatic. But I really feel for her because she had this realization at a party. There's a lot of people around, and listen, I don't think other people realize that she's having this realization, but like, you feel self-conscious. I think especially when you're younger, whenever you're like around your crush, you're always self-conscious that they're gonna like figure it out somehow, even though like you literally aren't speaking to them at all. I think for her, just having that realization while being at a party where there's so many people, having to subconsciously show that you don't care maybe when you see them with someone else because you think that other people around will notice. That's like another layer to this that is so heartbreaking to me. I don't know, maybe she did have a reaction to this and maybe people were like, what's her deal? A lot of things could have gone down. We don't have the exact details, but whatever it was not super pleasant. I really empathize with the protagonist here. It's always very heartbreaking to come to a realization that you and another person are operating within different realities. Again, no one's fault, but it's just like, whoa, I've been making decisions and future projections and predictions based on false information. You didn't like waste time because again, this is a natural thing to think and feel, but like sometimes you may feel like you've wasted your time a little bit. You're like, whoa, I need to like go and write in my room so something can bloom. Then we have the chorus repeated, you're on your own, kid, you always have been. I do think this is referring to the same moment that was referred to in verse 2. We do have the chorus right after we have details from this party. I think that party was a really standout moment in the protagonist's life because it really showed her that not everyone is going to act and feel the way that you hope that they do, and that you really do need to depend on yourself. That was a moment of clarity for her, a lesson learned, if you will. Bridge. The first two lines of the bridge are repeated lyrics, from sprinkler splashes to fireplace ashes. So when I hear those two lyrics now, I am taken back to that time frame in which the protagonist was still infatuated or yearning for their former love. That's another thing that those two lyrics to me are signifying. The protagonist says she gave her blood, sweat, and tears for this. For what? What is this referring to? Well, you can interpret this in a few different ways. You can interpret anything in any way you want. I always want to remind you guys, I'm not saying I'm right or you should agree with me necessarily. I'm just starting a conversation here and sharing my own thoughts. This here, I think, is referring to maybe the goals the protagonist had as like a plan B, or maybe not even a plan B. I get the sense that the protagonist had an inkling that she wanted to get out of her hometown, but she also had some like plans and potential dreams if she were to stay in her hometown, and that's kind of like a plan B. But I think this was before she started writing in her room where we had that beautiful word bloom. I think that the protagonist had like two paths, like a Robert Frost poem. She was also working on this path. When you're a kid living in your hometown, you don't know for sure if you're going to be able to get out or not. So you do want to try to cultivate relationships and friendships there and to build a life for yourself. You can do both things at the same time. You can work on your goal to go to a different place while still living your life in the place you're at. That's what I think about when I hear the word this. She was really trying to not only get this guy to like her, but also maybe to fit into a world, fit into a place that she knows doesn't really mesh with her 100%. She was maybe trying to fit herself into a narrative that was truly not meant for her. So blood, sweat, and tears is a saying. People say that often when referring to working very hard for something and making a lot of sacrifices. That saying is, of course, very intense. If we are to break this down just like one by one in a more metaphorical way, we can think about the word blood as suffering. When you bleed, it's because you've been cut. You're often cut by something that's sharp. It doesn't necessarily have to be a weapon, but it can be. So maybe metaphorically, you were cut by other people on your journey towards a goal, on your journey to accomplish something. Maybe you accidentally cut yourself because you weren't careful. I'm interpreting everything as like metaphorical. You could be emotionally bleeding or spiritually bleeding. You're giving yourself away in a very intense manner. And when you're bleeding, it's like a medical thing. You need medical attention. Whether that medical attention is at home and you need a band-aid, or whether you need to go get stitches, bleeding is something you need to give attention to. So the suffering that this protagonist endured is to a great extent. She needs to determine whether metaphorical medical intervention is needed or not. She needs to determine what's going to stop the bleeding. She gave her blood for this. If you lose too much blood, that's not good for you. If the protagonist is like emotionally, metaphorically bleeding and hurting from this, that's not emotionally good for her. So there's lots of ways we can extrapolate that out. Those were just some examples. The word sweat means you were working very hard. You were working a sweat. That could be literal, but I think it just is referring to the very intense amount of work and focus the protagonist had. And tears are, of course, emotional. That's how I'm interpreting it. So she gave her health, her body, like her endurance with the sweat, and then her emotions to trying to fit in to this narrative. That's the way that I am thinking about it. She has awareness of this. I think this is a hindsight is 2020 sort of thing. I don't think she necessarily had the awareness that she was sacrificing this much while she was doing it. It's hard to know when you're in it. Then the protagonist says she hosted parties, which sounds like a lot of work, but sometimes kind of fun. I don't know, I like hosting parties and decorating things. So I think that's fun, but some people may think it's like not fun, which is valid. It's very valid. So she hosted parties. That part of that line is neutral, chill. Then she says she starved her body. When I heard this lyric, I was more than emo. I felt so sad. And I know that Taylor talked a little bit about this subject matter in her documentary, Miss Americana. And I don't want to like necessarily tie this to Taylor. I feel like that's a little bit invasive. So I don't want to correlate this with Taylor's life. I think that's just like not appropriate for me to do. I don't feel comfortable doing that. So we're gonna talk about this not in relation to Taylor, just in general as like any protagonist. If someone was hosting parties and starving their body, they were looking for approval. That's the way that I'm reading it. I don't think if you are hosting a party, generally you're looking for approval, but those two things being in the same line within the context of the song, I think it's meant to represent that you're trying to look for approval, trying to get people to like you, you're trying to fit into the community you're with. They could have been looking for approval, they could have wanted to fit into a mold, or could have wanted to be perfect in a way that everyone will accept. This could also just be like a control thing. I'm not a psychologist, just as a person analyzing a song and analyzing the situation, it's also possible that the protagonist wanted to have a sense of control. I know that sometimes some people, when they have issues with eating, it may stem from a control thing, and this could be subconscious, where life around you is just happening to you and it's difficult sometimes. One thing you can control is what you eat or what you don't eat. I'm not saying that every single person that has an issue with food has an issue with control and that they need control. I'm not saying that. I am not making any remarks about anyone in particular. I'm not making any medical claims. I am just analyzing this as a human being. That's where I'm coming from. Please don't take what I'm saying super seriously. But when I read that, that's what I think about. There seems to be a lot of chaos surrounding the protagonist, the way that it's sung. The image of like going through the party of better bodies, I envision the protagonist going through a crowd of people like this. To me, that's kind of chaotic paired with the emotions she was feeling and the realization that she had. And while I'm listening to the song, I feel that sort of chaotic energy. It's like a heavy sort of chaos. It's not like light chaos. I think there's a difference between light-headed chaos is what I call it, and then like heavy chaos. This is heavy chaos in my opinion. And when you have that heavy sort of chaotic feeling, I personally associate that with a lack of control. I know that for some people, a lack of control can manifest in different ways. And one way could be being restrictive of what you give your body in terms of food. So that is something I'm thinking about here. Again, I'm not commenting on Taylor specifically, but I'm just thinking in general. I'm extrapolating this out very far away from any one person. This makes me really sad. I think it's good the protagonist has awareness of this now. I think it's her looking back as she's older. Unfortunately, in addition to the metaphorical sacrifices and the metaphorical hurt the protagonist was going through, she was literally hurting herself in a very physiological way. And I do interpret that as a literal. I don't view starved my body as metaphorical. You can if you want. I don't. When you are throwing parties, you're allowing a lot of people to come to your home and you are creating a sense of community within your home. That is maybe the protagonist trying to put an effort to get close to the people around her. Keep in mind, I'm extrapolating this out a lot. I'm saying this because this may be deeper than just someone not liking the protagonist back. And someone not liking you back is deep. Like, it is deep. It's very hurtful. It can take you, oh my God, months and months to get over it. And it can change you as a person. It can be a catalyst for you to shift your mindset and change your life. But perhaps since the protagonist is also talking about her town, there may be more at play here where the main thing, the main catalyst was the love not being reciprocated, was her finding out that her dreams weren't rare. But there could also have been a feeling of her really trying hard to feel at home in her hometown, but she couldn't. And that could be where the party comes in. Because I also think about the starving her body line, and that could be due to, liking someone. Maybe you think that you need to look a certain way to be with someone, which you don't. Or it could be a sense of not fitting into a larger community, causing for that to happen. Again, I'm just throwing out ideas here. Feel free to disagree with me if you want. That's totally okay. But yeah, those are the sorts of things I'm kind of extrapolating out from this. This is a very complicated and complex sort of thing. Life can be very complex and your emotions are complex, and people often do things for reasons that are very confusing and just influenced by a lot of different things in their life. That's why I'm kind of bringing all of these up. Another thing that is not that deep and could very well just be what the song is trying to say is that maybe she hosted parties so she could invite her crush and be close with her crush because she didn't feel like there was a way she could hang out with him one-on-one. So that's another possibility as well. You're creating the scene, you're being a mastermind, maybe a mini mastermind junior, hosting parties and inviting your crush and a bunch of other people, but you only care about that one. The one. Then the next lyric says, she did all of those things like she would be saved by a perfect kiss. She was doing all of this for that perfect kiss, for that happily ever after. For me, when I think about the happily ever after trope, I do think about the perfect partner, true love's kiss, you have your kiss, maybe your leg pops a la the Princess Diaries. So I envision that a very dramatic sort of perfect kiss and then end credits. I also think in real life, again, depending on the community you're from, when you're fantasizing about a perfect kiss, it's the partner, but also the life that comes with that. White picket fence, 2.5 kids, a golden retriever, and also the community as well. I think this depends from person to person. I think in certain cultures and in certain communities, maybe that perfect kiss also comes with a set of friends or a set of people that you have to socialize with. It comes with the territory that you have to see on a weekly basis. You have to host every once in a while. It's a lot of different things. It's like a lifestyle. You know what I mean? The perfect kiss comes with a lifestyle, and it can be one that you fit into and that you want, or that sort of lifestyle, that sort of community and socialization, like that specific type of socialization. It'd be something that you don't vibe with. It's giving chemtrails over the country club. Just for like a nanosecond, I thought about that. There was a point I made in that video where it's like, you can't mold yourself into a person that you like aren't. You can fake it for a while, but like at what cost? It could also like literally just not be that deep. It could just be the protagonist thinking that a guy is gonna save her. We've all been there at one point, haven't we? We just think that a relationship, a partner is gonna save us from all of our problems. It literally never does. This song has me going off on a lot of tangents, but it brings up a lot because this is talking about a time frame in the protagonist's life that's very formative. And in those formative years of your adolescence, you come to a lot of realizations, a lot of coming of age sort of things. This is like a coming of age sort of song, in my opinion. So that's why I'm extrapolating all of these out so much. It's because these are literally the things I think about when I listen to this song. The word save to me is concerning because the protagonist feels like she is in a very dire situation that someone else needs to come and rescue her from, but you can't have that be your vibe. You need to save yourself. To be clear, I'm not saying that you shouldn't accept help. You need a support system around you, and you need to accept help sometimes, but like you can't expect one person to come and save you from yourself. You need to like lay a foundation for yourself first, and then you're gonna have someone help you build on it, but like your foundation needs to be like up to code, right? You need to go learn physics. Ew. But it's important, you have to go learn it. I have to go learn it too, it's important. In Perfect Kiss, the diction, the protagonist was romanticizing an outcome for herself, which is something that we all do. When it says the jokes weren't funny, I think this is a general statement meant to be reflective of the protagonist's mindset towards her life. To me, this means that she's gonna stop acting. When you're trying to fit into a space, you're gonna just go with the flow. You're gonna laugh at the jokes, you're gonna go to the brunches, you play along with the narrative that is a part of that community. However, the protagonist now is rebelling. The jokes weren't funny, so she stopped laughing. That's how I interpret it. She is not going to play along with this. She's going to forge her own path. It's like a very strong act of rebellion, in my opinion. When you do this sort of thing, when you stop laughing at these jokes metaphorically, it doesn't have to be like a public declaration, and you don't have to go out and be mean to people. It can be a very quiet, private sort of rebellion. I took the money. I think this is in regards to the protagonist's career. She took the deal, like the record deal. I think Taylor did have like a writing record deal or something. I know she was like writing lyrics for like a record company, if I'm not mistaken. But again, we don't know if this is 100% autobiographical or not. To me, that's showcasing that the protagonist in the song took a deal in regards to her career. I think that deal is going to get her out of her hometown. She's not going to stay there. My friends from home don't know what to say because there's a change in behavior, right? And the thing is that only we are aware of our internal world. Perhaps this whole time the protagonist was like, I don't want to act this way, but I am. I don't want to exchange niceties to this degree with all of these people, but I am. You can extrapolate this out in a lot of different ways. She didn't ever say that out loud. She didn't ever act in a way that would show that. Now she's acting in regards to her truth. People are shook, but that's been her the whole time. She just wasn't able to show it yet. That's one way you can look at it. From the friend's perspective here, there's been a big shift in the protagonist, how she carries herself, the decisions she's making. She's leaving this town. What? She always hosted parties for us. She thought she was going to live here forever. The next line, the next two lines, let's read them because, again, emo vibes activate. I still have a side part. I never got a middle part, so I guess the emo is still mildly here, but okay, let's read this. So the protagonist looked around in a blood-soaked gown. We're gonna get there, hold on. And she saw something they can't take away. When it says she looked around, when I tell you this messes with me to a great degree, like emotionally, this is a moment in your life when you wake up. This reminds me of the song When I Wasn't Watching by Mandy Moore. I think she released it in the last few years. There's a music video for it. I'll link it below. That song is about your life changing without you realizing it. In the lyrics, she's like, when did this happen? Was I sleeping? Was I out of town? We all have that moment in our lives when we like look up and we're like, whoa, like literally, how did we get here? Did I choose this for myself? I don't think I did. What's going on? Here, I think the protagonist is looking around after looking up. A lot of times in life, we're looking down and just walking ahead. Tunnel vision. Tunnel vision can be positive or negative. Here, I'm using it in a negative way. You're not looking around at other possibilities. There's a little bit of darkness because you're in a tunnel, right? A metaphorical tunnel is still going to be dark. And you have a moment where you look up, and I think the protagonist is looking for help. She's looking around for help, for answers. She's like, how, what, who, what, when, where, and why. Great song from the Spy Kids too, I Love Lost Dreams. Look it up. That's how I'm interpreting that. I'm interpreting that as a moment of clarity. And once you have that moment of clarity, everything is different for you. You view everything differently. Maybe that moment of clarity happened when the protagonist realized that her dreams were not rare at that party. Maybe she's wearing a cute dress to a party, and here maybe it's being depicted as a gown. The word gown brings with it a regal sort of feeling, in my opinion. It feels fancy, feels important. It also brings in a certain time period, but I don't think that's the intent here. I think that this is just meant to show that this is very, very important, and it brings more value to the emotions being felt because she's wearing a gown. A gown, even if it's not super ornate, is still like a statement. It's a lot of work to get into a gown, a lot of work to put it on. Sometimes you need help. It's just a very not heavy sort of piece of clothing metaphorically, but it's like a very real piece of clothing. It's not something you just like put on and run out the door. There's a lot of intent and time that I associate with wearing a gown. You really have to like commit to wearing a gown. So the protagonist here is wearing something that takes a lot of effort and energy to get into, and honestly probably to stay into, because I don't think you can breathe that easily in a lot of gowns. So there's importance there. There's some heavy emotions there. So this could be like what the protagonist wore to a party. I think this is just meant to reflect the protagonist's perhaps emotional state. I don't necessarily think this is talking about that night at the party. It could be. That actually would fit perfectly. I think this is more of like a standout from the whole town and her whole experience, including her unrequited love. This whole time she was maybe in a beautiful gown, like being the princess of the town, doing the things she thought she was supposed to do, but the gown that she was wearing that she couldn't breathe in this whole time now is starting to become uncomfortable. She's starting to realize that she couldn't breathe this whole time. She's realizing that she in fact has greater lung capacity than that gown is allowing her. The reason I think it's a blood-soaked is because she has been hurt. First of all, let's just visualize that for a nanosecond. I know it's kind of disturbing. It's actually really disturbing. But when you view a gown as blood-soaked, it's very eerie, because even if it's a simple gown, it's beautiful and it's elegant. When you wear a gown, you're like this, right? You wouldn't necessarily expect something elegant and beautiful like that to have blood on it, because I associate blood in this context. For some reason, I associate with like a war. I don't like think there's blood from a paper cut on her gown. I think that it's like, oh, there's a metaphorical sword that was put through her stomach and that is bleeding out onto the gown. That's what I visualized from the first time I heard this lyric. I find this lyric in particular to be very intense because it's showcasing a very intense and life-altering sort of realization. There's a great shift in the protagonist. The gown I associate more with how she was before, and it's now blood-soaked because she is emotionally, psychologically, mentally bleeding out. She has been hurt, and I don't think it's just this crush. I think it's everything that goes along with her wanting to get out of the town. And you know what? It could Actually, I take that back. It could just be the crush, because again, the crush was a catalyst for her to realize other things, to realize that she has not been examining her life closely enough. You're giving your energy to other people unknowingly when you need, not even should, you need to give some of that energy to yourself. And obviously, yes, cultivate relationships for yourself. That's wonderful. But in addition to that, you should have time for yourself. Your romantic endeavors or friendship endeavors should not replace the time you have for yourself. They should be in addition, right? And you have to prioritize. I know life is busy sometimes, but I think that this realization that the protagonist had, that she is alone and that not everyone is operating in the same reality that she is, all of those things are giving her a life lesson. It's not just a love lesson. Like, it is a lesson about love, which is important. To me, it's kind of more existential than that. Sometimes something that happens in one area of your life can provide you with a realization in regards to another area of your life, or in regards to literally every area of your life. This is a big existential shift for the protagonist. That's what I think is happening, like a coming of age. When she's looking around in a gown, to me, that's very troubling. So that could be an image that's kind of extrapolated out to represent the entirety of the protagonist's experiences or realization in general in regards to all areas of her life. She's getting that lesson from the unrequited love and applying it to all areas of her life. Or if you want to look at this as being the night of the party, you can. This is so heartbreaking, and this makes perfect sense as well. It just depends on how you want to view the song. She was wearing a cute dress at the party. Here it's being depicted as a gown. I think the gown can also reflect the fact that the protagonist romanticized a lot of things, maybe unknowingly. Like in the Love Story music video, she was wearing a very beautiful gown. So she was all dressed up, she was at a party, but the realization she had, the realization that the person didn't care and that her dreams were in fact not rare, that cut her deep. that was like someone put a sword through her. And that was causing her to emotionally bleed out onto her very pretty party dress, onto this metaphorical gown. And then she was looking around at the party, looking for answers, looking for help to try to help her understand what just happened, because she was in shock from that emotional revelation. So this could be referring to that night in particular, or this could be a more like extracted sort of image to represent like a larger sort of experience. I think both ways are valid. I kind of believe both of them can be true at the same time. There's an endless number of ways to interpret this. I would really want to know what you think, so feel free to share it with me in the comments down below. This song is really heavy. I understand why this is a track 5. And also when she looked around, I don't think anyone came to help her or to save her. And I saw something that they can't take away. She saw that she could have a chance to get out of her hometown by writing songs. Something bloomed in her womb. And that lyric is why I think that the line above about the blood-soaked gown is being extracted to represent a larger understanding about her life, because it's talking about her career. I don't think she had the realization that she could become like a professional songwriter and a singer that night. I think she had it when she was processing the feelings. That's why I think that image is reflective of like a greater experience, not just that night. But again, open to interpretation. The protagonist is right here. Like, no one can take away her talent. No one can take away her perspective, because it's Taylor's viewpoint that is allowing her to create her songs in the way that she does. It's her specific way of feeling her emotions and explaining her emotions. Everyone explains things using a different word, using different sentence structure. The syntax is different, the diction is different, so the connotation is going to be different. No one can take that away from her. It's a very personal and unique thing. And that's true for a lot of artists. No one can take away your perspective. They can try to copy your sound and copy elements of what you do, but they're never going to know what you're going to do next. Because there were pages turned with the bridges burned. Such an interesting lyric. The protagonist here is saying that she burned some bridges. It's lyrics like that that make me think this is not just about an unrequited love. She like severed ties with people in her hometown maybe, or with specific expectations of her. I think that could be something going on here. I know that there's always some like controversy about burning bridges. Some people think you should never burn bridges, and burning bridges means that you're like severing ties with people. When you burn the bridge, there's no way to go back. You severed the tie with the person in such an intense way, there's no chance you're going to be close with them again. Some people believe you should never burn bridges. Some people subscribe to the belief that the bridges you burn will light the way. You can burn bridges with people. That's often how I hear burn bridges being used. But you can also burn bridges in regards to like other things. I think here it's in regards to like expectations, societal pressure, things like that perhaps. I would love to know what you think about burning bridges. I personally think it's best to try not to burn bridges when possible. I think especially in regards to like your career and like academics, like try not to burn bridges. In your personal life, however, I think that if necessary, you should burn bridges. I don't think you should be like willy-nilly with burning bridges. I think it's best to preserve relationships with people as often as possible, and to of course always be respectful and kind with people. And again, I'm not like a I don't know, like an advice person. I'm just a person giving you my opinions. We're just having a conversation here. You can reply in the comments below. However, I think instances arise where if you remain in that dynamic and if you remain in that situation, it's like a betrayal to yourself. It's like being disrespectful towards yourself. Perhaps that's what the protagonist had happen here. I do view everything here in a kind of an existential way. I don't know what bridges she was burning exactly, but I do think it's in regards to expectations and societal pressures. Those things may not be serving her, and she's going to burn those bridges, and maybe she's going to burn the bridges to the relationships she had with the people who expected that of her. So I think that this sort of burning the bridges and having the bridges light the way in this context like is fine. I think that she needed to do it, because sometimes you do need to do this sort of thing. It's a very intense decision to make, to burn bridges. Oftentimes, if you burn that bridge, you can't go back. So burning bridges here is intense. When she burned those bridges, she was also turning the pages, and I think this is the pages of her life story. Next chapter. In the protagonist's case here, the bridges that she perhaps had no choice but to burn are turning the pages within her life story, and they are allowing her to start a new chapter. Sometimes you do have to make very intense changes to be able to progress in your life, and I think that's what's happening here. The diction here, though, is letting us know that the changes that were made and the decisions that were made were ones that had a lot of consequences, and the consequences had ripple effects. There were bridges burned. Then it says everything you lose is a step you take. Sometimes you have to give up things in order to gain things in the future. Make the friendship bracelets, take the moment and taste it. You've got no reason to be afraid. I think this is the grown-up protagonist looking back. I think this is the protagonist saying, like, don't let me telling you that sometimes you have to give things up in order to move forward in your life keep you from living in the moment. Make your memories with your friends. Enjoy living in your hometown. Have a life. Create a life for yourself. Don't be afraid to cultivate and create a life for yourself just because you may have to give it up one day in order to follow your dreams. That's what I'm getting out of this. Everything you lose is a step you take. Like, you have to give up things in your life. It's going to be inevitable, but sometimes it's for the greater good for your life. It's going to be something positive for you, and you're going to realize why in time. So make the friendship bracelets. This is, again, reminding me of adolescence. She's telling you to taste the moment, to be in the present. Don't let the moments pass you by. Really savor it. What does this moment taste like? Is it sweet? Is it a little bit bitter? Is it a little bit sour? You want to have these memories of your life, and Taylor talked about this a lot in her earlier works, like, remember this moment. This is why this song is so nostalgic for me. And I know in her interviews during those earlier eras, she talked about how for her, a song is like a photograph. It's a way she captures memories. The fact that that was mentioned here made me think about all of those things from her earlier eras. Okay, quick tangent. Since I said the word eras, it reminded me of her Eras tour. I want your opinion. Do you guys think that this is her Eras tour because she's gonna take like a break after this? Is it kind of like a mini farewell tour, or do you think this is because of her re-recordings that she's doing her Eras tour, or just to like celebrate her career so far? I feel like if Taylor was gonna do like a legitimate farewell tour, then she would tell us. And I think it's way too early for her to retire, but like, who am I to say that? Like, I don't know her personal life and what she wants to do. When she announced it was like the Eras tour, it did worry me for a second because she would sing her earlier songs in her other concerts. Like during the Reputation tour, she had a mashup of like Love Story and Style. I don't know, it kind of worried me for a sec. I just wanted to know what your opinion was on that. I think she can have a career as long as she wants. She's so talented and we all love her so much. I genuinely want to know what you think about that. So let me know your thoughts. Getting back to the song now, she says you've got no reason to be afraid. Again, she's kind of on the other side of it now. I do kind of view this as her looking back on her life, the last few lyrics here. When you're going through changes like this, and when you're going through these coming of age sort of experiences, it can be scary. But once you're out on the other side, you know that everything's going to be chill. It's going to be fine eventually. And some things fall apart so better things can fall together. Live, laugh, love, you know? And then we have the chorus repeated, but it's a little bit different. There's a new lyric. It says, you're on your own, kid. Yeah, you can face this. You're on your own, kid. You always have been. This chorus is a little bit more positive in its tone. It's kind of like accumulation of all of the things the protagonist was probably thinking about on a particular midnight. For this song, I think that this could have been referring to midnights the protagonist couldn't sleep during the time that these events were occurring, like back in the mid-2000s, if we're talking about Taylor specifically, in addition to her thinking about that in more recent years. I think it's accumulation of all of that, because towards the end of the song, I do kind of get a sense that it's like modern day Taylor telling everyone, like, don't be afraid, like, you're gonna be fine. That's coming from someone who has a little bit more wisdom than they did before. So I find that really interesting and really cool in regards to that timeline, the timeline of different midnights. And I think that this last chorus here is meant to reflect modern day Taylor as well. It's the protagonist here telling you that, like, you're on your own, but you can do it because I did it. I know what it's like. You're going to be okay. You're on your own, kid. You always have been. When it says you always have been here, the connotation of it is lighter. The chorus that it ends on has a more positive connotation to it in its entirety, and I think that's a beautiful way to end the song. To sum up, I think the song deals with the protagonist reflecting on some moments in her life, in her adolescence, that were very formative for her. I think that the formative things that happened were caused by a very specific catalyst, which was the protagonist realizing that her love was not reciprocated. She was waiting for someone to fall in love with her. She was romanticizing and daydreaming about it, and she realized that her dreams had no value to anyone but to her. She was very much alone in that reality. Like I mentioned earlier, sometimes we have realizations in one area of our life and it opens up something very important, like an epiphany that applies to another area of our life or just to like every area of our life. And I think that's what happened here. There's a lot of life choices that were made in this song. They're difficult life choices to make, especially at a young age, especially when there's pressure from the outside, especially to make while you're heartbroken. So there's a lot of growing up that happened in this song. I do view this as a coming of age song. I really feel like I've grown up because, again, this makes me nostalgic, but also like I personally feel like there's a distance between me and the song. I feel like if I was like 14 or 15 and this came out, I would connect with this song in a different sort of way. I kind of connect with like the lyrics that I feel like are modern day Taylor in this song. I'm like, yeah, like it'll be fine. It's chill. Like this happens. This song made me realize that I've kind of grown up as well. I hope this makes sense. Like I know this may sound weird to you, especially if you're like a younger viewer and you're like, girl, what are you talking about? And I still do love this song a lot. I think it's very beautiful. I really enjoy the way it's written. There's some very heartbreaking and beautiful lyrics in this song. The metaphors and the imagery are exquisite as always, but it was interesting because I was like, oh, like I really do connect with Taylor's newer songs and the subject matter in those. And to me, this was kind of like a juxtaposition where I'm like, oh, right, I used to be all about this stuff and like I'm still all about it, but I used to like really connect like very specifically to these sorts of things. And now I understand them and I appreciate them and I think it's beautiful, but now I connect hardcore to other things that she sings about that are of a different sort of subject matter. So that was a really interesting thing for me to realize. And I think that's why in this video, I'm like super talkative because it makes me emotional. I just felt a lot of feelings when I was preparing for this video and listening to the song on repeat. I would love to know if you felt similarly, if you're an older Swiftie like I am. Validate my feelings, even though I don't need anyone to validate my feelings, but I would genuinely want to know if you felt that as well. I think it's something very interesting. That's all I have for this song. I would love to know how you view this song. Please comment down below. I love hearing from you. You guys, we're going through midnight, so make sure you are subscribed and you turn on your post notifications so you get notified when I post new videos. I'm trying to get through the midnight's analyses as fast as I can. I do ask you to please be patient with me. YouTube is not currently my 9 to 5, and I am still going to put out other artist analyses in between my Taylor Swift analyses to cater to everyone's preferences. So be patient with me. Your girl is working on it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Bye. It's me. Bye.